Thank you for being with us for our Black History Month celebration. Today is our first event, HP Jacobs to HBCU. We have several events this month, and let me just show you our website really quick, just in case you're interested. We have a few next week, hosted by not only our office, but some of our campus partners. So if you go to wccnet.edu/diversity, you'll be able to check out our list of events for this month. Share screen. All right. So HP Jacobs to HBCU. We're excited. I'm really excited about this. I learned about HP Jacobs just a couple years ago. I was doing a tour, historical tour in Ypsilanti, and I had been working in Washtenaw County for about 8 years prior to that tour, but I didn't know we had so much rich history as it relates to the Underground Railroad. During slavery and then after slavery, and then like people building churches and schools and all of these different things. So it's a lot of, if you get a chance, maybe not now, but next year, go on that tour. But we will learn about one of our legends here in Ypsilanti, HP Jacobs, and his story, and how I'm not even going to tell you some of his story because I know our Professor James Eggy from Eastern Michigan, he's going to share a lot about his story today. And then we'll transition into a little brief commercial about our HBCU Pathway. Here at Washtenaw Community College, there's a good connection between HP Jacobs and HBCUs you'll learn about. And then lastly, for those of you who are alum of HBCUs or supporters or, current students, we like to just hear your stories, hear some of the impact that HBCUs have had on you. And then if you have any questions for anybody that's been presented today, you'll have the time to do so as well. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Professor Dr. James Eggy. He's the Interim Associate Dean at Eastern Michigan University of the College of Arts and Sciences, and also a professor of history and philosophy. I heard from a colleague of mine that he had a great wealth of knowledge on HP Jacobs and has been doing some research, him and a couple other colleagues. So I'm just excited to learn more from him, and then, be able to make that connection between HP Jacobs and the HBCUs. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. James Eggy. And I'll stop sharing my screen. Oh, I have to allow you to share.
Thank you, Eric, and for the very kind invitation to speak to this group today and say a few words about really one of the most remarkable and accomplished individuals to have been part of our Washtenaw community, the Reverend Dr. Henry P. Jacobs. So like Eric, I first learned about H.P. Jacobs from local historian Matt Siegfried. And I got to say, when I first heard about Jacobs, I have to admit, I doubted that this amazing story was really completely factual. But as I corresponded with Matt and he shared with me the research that he had done, I realized that Jacobs' biography is really well authenticated. This amazing story is actually true. And so I'm going to show you a couple photos. Let me see if I can. Let's see. All right, do you see a couple photos? Is this working? Okay, thanks. So the image on the left is the only image we have of Jacobs from his lifetime. This was actually published, this engraving was published in 1892, and Jacobs died in 1899 at about the age of 74. And the mural on the right was painted by Ypsilanti High School students, led by teacher Lynn Settles in 2015. And so what I'd like to do today is just tell very briefly his story, and then hopefully I'll be able to leave a little bit of time for conversation. So Jacobs was born about 1825 in, let's see, about 1825 in St. Clair County, Alabama. I don't have my cursor moving. Oh, here we are, down here in Alabama, St. Clair County. He and his mother were enslaved. by wealthy planters John and Nanny Dill. As a child, Jacobs was charged with caring for an insane man who taught him to read and write, which was forbidden for enslaved people at the time. But in 1856, Jacobs used this forbidden knowledge to forge a pass for himself, his wife, Louisa, their 3 children, Anna, Harriet, and Samuel, and Louisa's brother, John. So taking a wagon and horses from the Dills, they escaped on July 24th. On their way north, they were stopped twice and their papers were inspected. They were questioned and detained, but they were allowed to continue, and they arrived safely in Canada on August 19. Just kind of an amazing story, really, because when we hear about people escaping from enslavement, usually it's a story from somebody escaping from a border state like Kentucky or Maryland. But the fact that this group was able to escape all the way from Alabama to Canada is just quite remarkable. So that fall of 1856, Jacobs was baptized in the Detroit River by the Reverend William Troy, and Jacobs was ordained a Baptist minister 2 years later. Then the next year, in 1859, Jacobs moved to Ypsilanti, where he was hired as a janitor at the Michigan State Normal School, what is today Eastern Michigan University. And he held this position as janitor until at least 1864. And so during this time in Ypsilanti, he also co-founded the Second Baptist Church here and served as its first pastor. He led Ypsilanti's African-American community in withdrawing their children from the public school, because at that time, the Black children were forced to sit in the back of the classroom. They weren't treated equally. So Jacobs led the community in leaving and removing their children from the public school and creating their own school. He also, in 1863, co-hosted the Michigan State Convention of Colored Men, and in 1866, he spoke at Ypsilanti's Emancipation Day celebration. At least 3 of his children, Anna, Samuel, and Mary, were students at the normal school here in Ypsilanti, and so during the 1860s. So EMU's first African-American students that we know of were Jacobs' children. And by the way, this is how I became so interested in this subject. Jacobs is this really important figure for EMU history, and someone that we don't celebrate enough. So I'm trying to get people at EMU to know his story. So in October 1866, after the Civil War ended, Jacobs moved back south, and he settled in Natchez, Mississippi. So from Ypsi down here to Natchez. And while down there, he continued to pursue his religious, political, and educational projects. On arriving in Natchez, Jacobs immediately organized the Pine Street Baptist Church, became its first pastor, and he began organizing Baptist congregations into associations. In 1869, he founded the Baptist Missionary Convention of Mississippi, and he served as president of this association of Baptist churches for its first 8 years, and continued to lead the convention in other roles through the 1880s. Jacobs and his fellow missionaries started churches in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas. One historian recounts that Jacobs was perhaps the most effective organizer, I'm quoting here, perhaps the most effective organizer the Negro Baptists of Mississippi have ever possessed, riding through the wilderness, presiding at conventions, abandoning his chair to aid and instruct humbler brethren on the floor, pleading, exhorting, and commanding. Jacobs displayed an energy that at times was nothing less than amazing. Up and down the western section of the state he traveled, leaving behind him churches, associations, and missionary boards without number. In 1869, he gathered a large number of his churches into the Missionary Baptist Convention, which by 1888 included 298 congregations with a total membership of 48,926. So this amazing, energetic church organizer. He also threw himself into creating educational opportunities for Black Mississippians. During his first 2 years in Natchez, he taught a day and night school. In 1867, he petitioned the city to provide a site for a school for Black children. And in 1869, he petitioned the city to fund the city's schools for African Americans. As president of the Baptist Missionary Convention, Jacobs' constant goal was to create a school for the training of ministers. And his efforts to raise funds for this project suffered two severe setbacks. They lost their money twice, once through embezzlement and then once through the failure of the Freedmen's Bank. But ultimately, he secured funding for the school through his participation in national Baptist organizations. And in 1876, the American Baptist Home Mission Society purchased the Marine Hospital building in Natchez to house the school. And this school that he started, Natchez Seminary, was to evolve into Jackson College. And it moved from Natchez to Jackson at that time. And this is the school that evolved into Jackson State University. So I'd like to share with you some of these words by H.P. Jacobs. He wrote this in a letter to the Baptist Missionary Convention in 1886. And rather than me reading this, I would like to ask you to read it and just imagine these words in Reverend Jacobs' voice. As you read these words, what comes to mind about H.P. Jacobs? Any thoughts anybody would like to share?
I can add something to it. I'm just a guest. Anthony Webster invited me here, but as a Shantae, that's exactly what I was about to say. He's a visionary. I went to Jackson State University where I had a dual degree, political science and mass communications, and I know that his sacrifice, his bravery, his vision allows me to be where I am. I'm currently the vice president of operations for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. So it's truly a full circle moment.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's wonderful. Yeah, this quotation just amazes me. I mean, this is somebody born as an enslaved person, and here he is 21 years after the Civil War. He's created this college. You'd think at age 61, he'd be, resting on his laurels. But instead, no, he wants to build this college into a university with a medical school and a law school and an engineering school, a printing press. Yeah, his ambition and vision is just amazing, I think.
Yeah, and I was just going to say he wasn't satisfied with just how he accomplished his goal, but he wasn't satisfied. He wanted to make sure that, not just what he was doing, but medical, law. He looked at all the colleges that would have a huge impact on society in general. It looks like he just kept, like you said, kept moving forward for sure.
For me, it shows his bravery, because I'm sure it was not an easy thing to accomplish during that time, but he was willing to take the risk, and he's asking his fellow clergymen to get on board so that we can ask for these things. I'm sure it was not easy to even try to go forward and to ask for those things. So to me, it shows that he was very brave.
Absolutely. I mean, they lost their money twice that they had collected, but he still just kept persisting. In addition to that, there's much more to the story. He was also a successful statesman. In 1868, he served in Mississippi's Constitutional Convention, where they ratified the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and wrote a new constitution for Mississippi. One historian of African Americans in Mississippi considers Jacobs to have been the second most effective Black member of the convention. He was elected to the State House of Representatives for 3 terms. And in the legislature, he pursued many of the goals that he worked for in the church. He proposed bills making education compulsory, raising taxes to pay for schools. He introduced legislation to protect lessees of land and to prevent fraudulent real estate dealings. He also served as overseers for the poorhouse in Adams County and as Mississippi's Assistant Commissioner for Immigration. Recognizing that land ownership was a route to self-determination, Jacobs worked to acquire property. He owned real estate here in Ypsilanti until 1876, and he owned city lots in Natchez in the 1880s and 1890s. And he also promoted 4 initiatives to create railroad companies. In 1867 and 1868, he labored valiantly to secure 5,000 acres of farmland for a company of nearly 1,000 freed people. So one landowner whose plantation Jacobs proposed to buy, he reported about Jacobs' group saying, "They are refusing to work for anyone, believing they are to have a place of their own." So just amazing. Think about this throughout the Civil War. He's going up to plantation owners, proposing to buy the plantation so people can have their own farms. Unfortunately, this particular initiative fell through. The financing didn't work, but still amazing that he was able to advance this plan. He built other organizations. He created a fraternal society, the Jacobs Benevolent Society. He was president of the Natchez Prohibition Club. He was active in the Republican Party and the Union League. He served in 1869, he served as vice president of the American Baptist Free Mission Society, which was a predominantly white group. He attended their annual meeting in Richmond, Virginia that year. He affiliated his Missionary Baptist Convention with the National Organization of Black Baptist Churches. In 1872, he was a delegate to the National Convention of Colored Men in New Orleans. And in 1874, he addressed a mass meeting at a Republican club in Chicago and described from personal experience outrages committed against freed people by the Ku Klux Klan and the White League. So sadly, even at this early date in 1874, he could see that the victories achieved during Reconstruction were under threat. Jacobs also practiced medicine. So maybe I think you can see why I found this story just hard to believe when I first heard it. He, for 20 years, he provided care without having received formal training. But when the Louisville National Medical College opened its doors in the late 1880s, he enrolled. And in 1890, at the age of 65, he earned an MD. So a contemporary biographer wrote, as a physician, he is very successful. Dr. Jacobs is a man of great willpower and determination. He believes it's never too late to do good, and he's constantly using his efforts for the good of his people. After his death in 1899, the women of his family carried on his legacy. His daughters, Anna, Mary, and Elizabeth, all joined the National Association of Colored Women, a civil rights organization. Jacobs' children also carried on his work through education. Anna Jacobs de Hazen was a school teacher while she lived in Natchez, and then a pianist and music teacher here in Ypsilanti. Mary Jacobs Rogers became a public school teacher in Natchez before settling in Adrian, Michigan to raise her family. She delivered speeches on behalf of the NAACP in support of the Dyer anti-lynching bill. And in 1914, Governor Ferris appointed her to represent Michigan at the annual convention of the Negro National Civic Movement. So Jacobs is today best remembered as the founder of Jackson State University. And perhaps what strikes us most today about his story is that remarkable story of escape from bondage in Alabama to freedom in Canada. But I also want us to remember these crucial 7 years in Ypsilanti, because it was here that he developed the rhetorical, organizational, and leadership skills that he used to such great effect in Mississippi. And it was here he built institutions that continue to serve the Washtenaw community even today. So I'd love to hear more of your thoughts about Jacobs and his legacy. And if I can possibly answer any of your questions, I'd love to do that too.
Absolutely. If anyone has questions, please feel free to ask Professor Egge.
Well, I don't have a question, but more of a comment. Hi, Dr. Egge, Dr. Reed. But as an alumnus of Jackson State University and Eastern Michigan University, right? I think, as we talk about full circle moments, leaving Mississippi, I'm from Greenville, Mississippi. So moving from Mississippi to Ypsilanti, which I had a hard time pronouncing about 11 years ago when I first moved to Ypsi, having that, that full circle conversation years ago around this man who was this figment of my imagination, who I saw at the administration tower, right? And said, oh, well, he worked here years ago, to see and know that, he worked at EMU as well. And now currently me working at EMU as well, right? to see and be a part of that, is something that I don't take lightly. And to be a part of this conversation today just lets me know that the work that we do, precedes us. Like the legacies that we leave once we're gone, we're building upon something every single step, every single day that we have a breath in our lives, that we are planting seeds and leaving a legacy. And this is a true example of what that looks like.
Yeah, thank you. I would love for us to more publicly remember that legacy at EMU. I would love to see a building named after him. I think he's that important. And the fact that people don't know that the first Black students at EMU were the Jacobs children, I think that's the story that we should all know at EMU.
Dr. Eggy, this is Jenna Jacobs. Of course, this has been a great history lesson. How long have you been researching the information on Dr. Jacobs?
It's just been a couple of years. What happened a few years ago is that we were going to rename a building on campus. So a colleague of mine and I thought, oh, we should propose HB Jacobs. And so that's when I started corresponding with Matt Siegfried, who was one of our graduates. And, I looked at the research that he had done and then found out what more I could. So it's just been a few years, but really building on the work that he had done. Can I share with you? Do I have time to share with you one thing I found last summer? Because I think it's...
Sure.
All right. If I can go back here. Oh yeah, this page. So I was looking in the archives early this year and found looking through this old register of students. And this is from, I think, summer of 1870. But in this student book, Anna Jacobs, Ypsilanti, and there's the courses she took and her grades over here. And what was so exciting about finding this is that we had seen record earlier of two of the children being students in like the model school. The normal school was a teacher training school. And so they ran a little school where students could practice teaching. And some of the Jacobs children were students there. But here we can see that Anna Jacobs, the oldest daughter, was actually doing the teacher training course. So she was doing the equivalent of what is today college level work. You can see she took geography, arithmetic, grammar, advanced German. And so this was really exciting to see that, to make this discovery. So she was really, sort of, as best we know, again, the first African-American student doing the regular normal college curriculum. So I think there's a lot more to be found about him, I think.
So, Professor Eggy, like all of these things, like all of these, churches being built and, the schools in there, like, where does the funding for this come from? Did he, he was a custodial at Eastern and everything. Yeah. Is there any insight on how did that come about?
I don't know. Being a janitor would have been a good paying job, regular paying job, but I don't know anything about the story of how they put together the money. They bought an existing church building for Second Baptist. It had been a Presbyterian church, that building, but they also established the school building. So I don't really know how the community raised that money. Yeah, philanthropic churches. What finally happened to buy the hospital building to establish Natchez Seminary was funding from a predominantly white Baptist group, was how they did that. But I don't know how they got started. I think people just scrimped and saved. They gave their pennies and their dollars, and they just built these institutions by themselves.
We do have a question in the chat. Are there any living descendants of HB Jacobs?
I looked, even though he had, I think, 7, 8 children, I could not find any living descendants. And I was really disappointed because I would have loved to see if there was any family history. I did try to reach out to, I found one story about one of his daughters at having a birthday party hosted by a cousin named Jacobs in Chicago. And actually, I found a relative. Does anybody know Claude Jacobs, who taught at U of M Dearborn? I kind of gave him one of those creepy messages saying, I'm researching your family. And I asked him if he could, if he knew any connection. He didn't, even though he knew his family story. But there was a free family, family that was free people of color up near the Huntsville, Alabama area. And I was wondering, was there any kind of connection there? Because that's this Jacobs family in Chicago. They were part of that family, these free people of color named Jacobs. So I don't know if he just chose their name or if there was a family connection. According to that early biography we have, his birth name was Samuel Hawkins. So he took that name, H.B. Jacobs, when he escaped Alabama. But I don't know. But unfortunately, there's no family, as far as I can know, as I've been able to find. But Dr. Jacobs, if you are know of a connection, I would love to hear about it.
No, unfortunately, not the
I
same.
was going to ask Dr. Mosley. I think recently we were asked to give a tour for some of Dr. Jacobs' family members. We are asked from time to time. I think so. And I was actually trying to run through my emails to see if I could find it. But I remember there was a group that said they were actually family members of Dr. Jacobs.
Whoa.
So I was trying to find the email, but I couldn't find it. But I do believe we recently
Oh, we got to try to hunt that down.
right.
Help Professor Eggy.
I think so.
That would be huge to find out. You know,
Right.
you could-
I'll look into it. Memory serves me correctly. I believe that's what it was.
wow.
Well, I'm going to say first, thank you, Professor Eggy. You know, I know you have much more that you could possibly share. You know, I even think like, you know, this needs to be included in some type of course at Eastern too, as well. Like, so thank you so much. Thanks, Anthony, for even recommending me reaching out to Dr. Eggy. And, you know, everyone just give him a round of applause. You know, if you want to use your emoji or just where you're at. Well, we really appreciate your time and your research doing this.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right, guys, let me fix this. It said for members of the Reddix family, one of our previous presidents.
Oh, okay. But we're going to speak that to existence, that somebody will come up and say, hey, that was my great granddad. All right, so let me share my screen. And if anybody else, I don't know how long Professor Eggy is sticking around, but you know, if you do have more questions, you could just drop them in the chat if anything comes up.
I'll stick around. I want to hear about the rest of the program.
Okay. All right. So as we there's an article that came out of Ipsy Real that, you know, highlighted H.B. Jacobs, Ypsilanti's builder of African American worlds. I believe, I don't know if Pastor Waddles is on the call, but he's actually the current pastor of Old Second Baptist, which is right here at the church that I don't think that's the current location of where the church is at now, but that's the church that H.B. Jacobs founded. And this is the school in Ypsilanti that was segregated, where, you know, H.B. Jacobs had created a school for African American youth. And then this is the Natchez Seminary, which eventually, you know, became Jackson State University. I don't know if that's probably in a different city, but this is the original building right here. So, you know, there's tons of more articles online if you want to check them out. But, you know, definitely like, you know, if you have more questions, you know, we can connect you with Professor Eggy if you have other questions to follow up. So without further ado, we have a quick little highlight of our new Pathway program here at Washtenaw Community College. If you haven't heard, we launched it last fall semester. So, you know, we're going to just share a little bit of information about our program. And I have the pleasure of introducing our coordinator of student engagement, Mia Lanier Durkin. She attended a HBCU, worked for a few HBCUs, and just have a strong passion for HBCUs. And she's been hitting the ground running, getting out to our community, to our local high schools, recruiting students, And then even with our current students, working with them so they can get on the right pathway to eventually transfer to a HBCU. So Mia.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be able to still have this program, even though it was a snow day for us here in Michigan. Thank you all for joining us for this wonderful event. Thank you, Dr. Eggy, for sharing the rich history of the dynamic Dr. H.P. Jacobs. Again, my name is Mia Lanier-Durkins, and I'm the Student Engagement Coordinator in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And I'm an alum of Bennett College for Women in Greensboro, North Carolina. And in my role, the great thing about it is that I get to bring awareness of HBCUs to our area. And that's me, like Dr. Reed said, I bring awareness in our community. I'm visiting high schools, joining different organizations for events to introduce our program to just different people in our community. So what our program is students can come to WCC, earn their associate's degree, and transfer to an HBCU. And the benefits, one of the huge benefits about this program is that they will have access to in-state tuition. They'll have access, to no application fee, guaranteed admissions. Their credits will transfer. So this opportunity is huge for our students here in Washtenaw County. We want to also, eventually when COVID is under control, we'd like to offer our students access to college tours to go visit some of our partners. So how do our students become a part of this program? Well, they enroll or they are admitted to WCC, then they complete an interest form, HBCU Pathway interest form. And then they participate in our enrichment events and activities. So the great thing about this is definitely the access that this is giving our students, allowing our students a way to attend an HBCU affordably. So we are excited for our students to have this opportunity. I'm looking forward to seeing our students excel and begin to transfer to HBCUs. I'm excited to educate our community on HBCUs and just bringing more knowledge to the community. So this event was perfect, especially because Jackson State University is one of our partners. They are our largest partner, and we're just so excited that they're on the call today with us. We have Dr. Juno Jacobs and members of her team with us to bring warm greetings all the way from Jackson State University. So without further ado, I will turn the program over to Dr. Jacobs.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, we would just like to welcome you. Well, first of all, Dr. Reed, we're so pleased that you invited us today for your Black History event. And of course, we have received an outstanding history lesson today that, of course, most of us knew, who are here from Jackson State University, but it was a great lesson. And Dr. Eggy, we really appreciate the information from you. I do see our provost on, so we most definitely want to yield to her. Dr. Mosley is on the call today.
Oh, this is great. I'm so glad I found out about this. I'm so glad to be here and just be amongst the groups. Thank you for the invitation. And we love this idea about partnership and collaborating and really connecting the North and the South in some ways, but also reflecting on the rich history of H.P. Jacobs. Shortly after my time, when I started as a professor, and President Mason introduced H.P. Jacobs in that midst while I was there and really pushed our understanding of him as the true founder. So it is just so great to be here in this kind of lunch and learn setting around that. And I look forward to engaging more with some of the other activities you all have this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mosley. I know we have Dr. Brandon Newkirk-Turner, who's our associate provost. Dr. Newkirk-Turner, if you would like to say a word or two.
Thank you, Dr. Jacobs. No, I'm just really excited to be here. It was a history lesson for me. It was everything about it was new for me. So I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for the information that you shared. I'm really excited and passionate about this articulation agreement in particular because I am from Michigan. Spent a lot of time in Ypsilanti as a college student, although I went to Michigan State University. And of course, I'm here now at Jackson State University. So anytime I'm able to connect my new life with my upbringing, it's always an exciting time. So thank you so much for that history. It was all new to me, and I made sure I got my notebook and took a lot of notes. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I know we have members of our articulation team on. If you would just introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon. This is Janet Adams. I am a part of the articulation team, and I am just excited to be here. It's always good to see the people that we work with at the colleges. So we are just excited to be here this afternoon. This has been an awesome event. And hopefully we can do more like this in the future. It has been very enlightening. Thank you all for this opportunity.
I thought I saw Dr.
Well, I'm gonna speak. I was waiting to make sure no one else came in, but I am LaTorsha Smith. I'm also a member of the articulation team, and I echo what Dr. Adams said, and everyone else, Dr. Mosley and Dr. Newkirk-Turner. Thank you.
Okay, do we have others on the team from Jackson State? Looking through the names, trying to make sure.
Hi, I'm Harrison Johnson, and I'm eager to continue to learn and just excited. And this is a great way to close out a Friday. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Johnson. Yes, it is a great way to close out a Friday. Today is a great day. We are working with Ms. Garrett at WCC, the Director of Curriculum and Assessment, on some other updates that are needed. But I'm so glad that we were invited, as I mentioned before, and so we can really put the face, with the names, since we are meeting a lot, and we have to do that to make sure everything is done. But on behalf of Jackson State University, we are honored to be here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jacobs and Dr. Mosley and everyone else from Jackson State. We're just excited about this partnership overall, but definitely partnering with Jackson State. We had the pleasure of meeting President Hudson over the summer. Myself and my boss, who's the executive vice president, we met with him while he was in Detroit. And then, of course, our partner, our colleague, Anthony Webster, was a former employee here at Washington Community College, and now he's at Eastern, like he said, and he reps Jackson State hard. So I'm going to now transition to the next part while we're talking about repping HBCUs. So let's do a little roll call, see who's all here and everything. So, just pop in, say something, just reflect on your experience, why you went to an HBCU, the importance and everything, because we have some students on this call that are aspiring to go to HBCUs. Today we had a snow day, so sometimes some students think that everything's canceled when it is. So but we're going to record this and then share it out on our YouTube website so other students can kind of see this too. So at any time, you could just say hello, what school you went to, and then reflect on any of these questions right here. Oh, I stopped sharing. Sorry. But pretty much, reflecting and, why you went to the HBCU that you went to, and then any advice for our current scholars.
Well, I guess I can start. My name is Celeste Green, and I actually have a company here in Ypsilanti implementing Spanish programs in elementary schools, but I went to Central State University in Ohio. And actually, I did not choose to go there originally. My mother said we had to try out an HBCU first. And then if we really didn't like it, we could leave. But of course, once I got there, well, the first week I cried. But after that, it was like, I loved it. It was an amazing experience. And I don't know what I expected when I got there, but what I did get when I got there was just this embracing of the professors and the whole community, and just seeing everybody working kind of towards the same goal. And a lot of times I feel like bigger universities or predominantly white institutions kind of weed people out. Whereas I feel like, I know for me, the HBCU I went to really embraced us and tried to help us bloom instead of trying to weed us out, kind of thing. So that was a huge plus for me. And it has impacted my life in a way that, and I know there's some kind of research that shows that, like, when you go to an HBCU, you're more likely to get an advanced degree, or they produce more advanced degrees. And that's what I did. I went and got my master's degree after that. And I am so connected, so very connected to my HBCU, to Central State. And they're at homecomings, and and just it's such a tight community, and it feels like family. And I would advise, and I love this program. It's just amazing, this whole pathway, where you're getting kind of that nurturing at WCC, and then having that pathway to this powerful kind of program. So for me, it just really, I feel like it empowered me, and I felt like I could leave. When I left there, I was invincible, because I just felt like I had been nurtured and had such a strong community in that way. So that was my story.
And Celeste, I think I remember you were in the entrepreneurship pitch competition last year, correct? That we had at WCC.
I thought you looked familiar. Yes. I was, and I won that one. I was really happy about
Yeah,
it.
you did win. Can you just share about your business real quick?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm so glad you brought that up, because when I was at Central State, that was one of the things that was a huge experience for me. When I was in my Spanish class there, they had an opportunity for someone to go abroad, and Central State had these scholarships and these opportunities to pay for us to go. And that's what I did. I took advantage of that. I just feel like there's so many opportunities at HBCUs as well. And so I went, and that's how I majored in Spanish. And then after that, I began working at a Spanish immersion school in Detroit. And then I realized, there's not enough kids, especially kids of color, learning another language at the age when they should learn it. Of course, a lot of schools have in the high schools and things like that, but it just wasn't a lot of that in the elementary schools. I know that's the best time for kids to learn it. So I came out of the classroom and started my business, Spanish for Kids, and work with different school districts, and I have contracts with different schools, different districts, only to implement Spanish language and culture programs in elementary schools, not in middle and high. Like I said, a lot of the school districts have that. But in Ypsilanti, they really believe in that. They believe in getting that language to kids at a young age, and so that's where we are now. We're in all the elementary schools in Ypsilanti, and right now we just had a billboard that went up in Ypsilanti on Huron Street, where the students had come up with this idea that, we're learning Spanish, but it just doesn't feel like people in Ypsilanti or the city as a whole really shows that they celebrate other languages and cultures and all that. So we ended up going to the city and talking to city leaders. And so now we have a billboard that says, welcome, Ypsilanti welcomes you in a lot of different languages. And so the kids got a chance to see their voices be heard and have that come to light. So that's what Spanish for Kids is all about. Just making sure they get language at the age that they should get it, and in an interactive and fun way.
Well, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on your continued success. And thank you for sharing. We are actually in the process of a agreement with Central State University too. We met with them in January. So we'll be connected with you too.
I'm so excited about that. I was going to ask that. That was my next question, but thank you. I'm so happy about that.
All right. Anyone else want to share? I see we have a few. I think I see a couple of our students on the call too as well. It says Harry, Harri, Harry.
Harry, short for Harrison, it's fine.
Sorry.
I am a two-time graduate from Alabama A&M University in Huntsville, Alabama. And one thing, and I just kind of relate to what Celeste said, my uncle taught at Central State University in computer science, Robert Marcus, for years. So I've been a senior and yeah, so all the good things, but the networking, see the interconnectedness. One thing that I always say is what differs me from some of my other friends that decided to go a different way was that they had to go to college to join a Black student union. I didn't have to do that. So they had to find safe spaces on their campus. So it wasn't necessarily that success was guaranteed when they went there. But when you look at the makeup of who you can reach back to and call on the in-between times, in regards to a networking opportunity, now those, you know, who are now my peers are now the medical doctors, the dentists, the lawyers. So whenever I need that level of expertise and assistance, those are people that I sit in an undergraduate classroom with, you know, and I don't think that that's saying, I know it's not true for those that did decide to go a different route for their undergraduate studies. So I think the networking opportunities that do come with an HBCU, you do gain those friends for life. Not to say that you wouldn't from another institution, but definitely that is a benefit, you know, as you advance. So
I'll talk about the academics at a HBCU. Why did I choose Jackson State University? I am a graduate of Jackson State University. Why did I choose Jackson State? Kind of like Celeste, I didn't choose Jackson State. My best friend did. And I went to school with my best friend. And I found it to be a very rewarding experience. I have attended HBCUs as well as PWIs. And I can say that the academics at Jackson State University is bar none. Jackson State University has some awesome faculty. My favorite teacher was Ms. Evans or Dr. Evans in the English department. I don't remember her first name, but she not only taught us English, she taught us about life. She taught us about being a young lady. She taught us about all of the things that the textbooks could not teach us. And that is one of the things that really impresses me about the HBCUs. I have attended Belhaven University, University of Southern Mississippi, Jackson State. To me, they all are SACS accredited. And I think that the academics at Jackson State University, you can take that degree and do whatever it is that your heart desires. And I think our track record speaks for us for Jackson State University. But the academics, I won't even say in comparison. I'm just going to say they were all good. But Jackson State University will definitely prepare you.
Dr. Reed, I want to jump in here too, and say that the partnership between Jackson State and Washtenaw Community College is something that even when I worked at Washtenaw was something that I think was in the development, but I'm glad that you took the torch and kind of ran with it and made it happen. It's good to see it kind of come to fruition. But I want to say that as a former president of, so I see Sue here. Sue's still here. Yep. Nope. I don't know. But yeah, I see Sue still here. So the Detroit Alumni chapter is in the house. Hey. So, you know, as a former president of the Detroit Alumni chapter and now the current vice president, you know, we used to do a lot of college fairs. And one of the questions, you know, families would talk about when we go to Detroit high school, say, send my child to Mississippi? Really? You know, and I think it will be, it takes those conversations that we used to have with those families, those mom and those dads who had those hesitations, those concerns about sending their child from Michigan all the way to the South, right? And so I want to just lend my services in the Detroit chapter as well as you talk with students about HBCUs. If they have hesitations, if their parents say, okay, go join that program at Washtenaw, well, let's talk about what HBCU you're going to choose, right? I am more than happy to have a conversation, you know, 11 o'clock at night, call me with a family around why they should choose Jackson State. Again, as we talked about why I chose Jackson State, again, much like everybody on this call, I was a first generation college student and my friends went to Jackson State. Their parents, some of their parents had went to Jackson. So from Greenville to Jackson, it was an hour and a half, 2 hour drive. They went to Jackson. And so when I got there in 2006, so the building behind Dr. Mosley, I watched that building get built. I lived in Alexander Hall my freshman year, and I watched that building from dirt to what it is now, right? And so, it's those moments that I think back to, and it's like, as we talked about the legacies that we leave, it's oftentimes when I go back to Jackson State, I see things that I was a part of. It's a tree by that student center as well that I planted on Earth Day back in 2008. It's still flourishing. I love going back and see the tree. I was a McNair scholar at Jackson State. And now to be, working at Eastern Michigan, which is, as the director of TRIO, Student Support Services. So all talk about full circle and just the moments that always remind you of, had I not met Dr. Brown and McNair, and being a part of that situation and, developing me and planting those seeds, having work, I had a balance at Jackson State and ended up getting work study in the Dean of Students office with Dr. Marcus Cheney was still there. And that's why I found my love for student life, right? In the student life department when it was in the old industrial arts building, right? And so you think about those things in those situations and I won't say that other students at other schools don't have those similar stories, but I believe at Jackson State it's more intentional. The nature of what the intentionality of the culture that you build with the faculty, the staff, that family environment, you can't get that, you can't buy that, you can't make it up, you can't Photoshop that on a brochure. I'll say that.
Well, I would just like to say, as far as why I chose an HBCU, I've attended two HBCUs, both here in Mississippi, Jackson State University, and I started an undergrad at Russ College in Holly Springs. So of course, when I went to Russ, that was 3 hours away. So of course, that was a little different from me, when you've been at home all the time, but I was not a first generation college student. So the question in my household was not if you're going to college. The question was pick which college you want to attend. So that just could not be the question. Just the way I grew up, that you just pick which one you want to attend. So, and of course I did that, but I was interested in a close-knit environment, somewhere where everybody, kind of like Cheers, everyone knows your name, that they looked at me as by my name, not by a number, not by a student number, that they actually knew me. And you get that from the small environment from a HBCU. And of course, I love that. And of course, the opportunity and growth cannot be matched, in my opinion, with a HBCU. But I have plenty of family members who graduated from HBCU and PWIs, but I am just glad I made the choice of receiving all my degrees from HBCU.
So we got a lot of Jackson State on the call. We have One Central State University. Is there any other HBCUs we got on the call? That's Jackson State came through hard.
I believe.
And I'm so glad to be a part of the Jackson State family, but I would be remiss if I did not say that I am a graduate of FAMU. And certainly long and proud alum, and certainly going to a HBCU was a critical point in my life. One of the things I think that's so wonderful about what we do is we provide educational opportunities for people when they need it the most. Being in college is when, is a critical point in your life and really influences the trajectory you'll have later. And certainly as a graduate of Florida A&M University, it provided me opportunities for, of course, funding for my education, but also internships and that co-curricular experience to align with the curriculum that's been a force for me all of the time. So I was a McNair scholar. as was said today. And I think that had a lot, of course, that did have a lot to do with where I ended up. My mentor served as a real conduit for me choosing the school I ultimately would attend and graduate from, and also introduced me to the person who would ultimately be my dissertation chair. So, FAMU, they take you and they don't let you go to the end. So, and of course, I still have those relationships with my mentor and my professors there. And of course, my freshman class, we're still all very, very close. So would not have changed my decision for the world.
And yes, this our partnership in general, our HBCU Pathway initiative, it's all about supporting all of our HBCUs, and so it's good to see there's unity amongst the HBCUs. So even if a student might not want to go to one of our specific partners, we're still helping them go to the school of their choice. We're really expressing the benefits of the guaranteed admission, the in-state tuition, those things, and how much of a cost saving that can be. But there's different reasons for all of our students. So I'm excited that we're launching this initiative. I know we had a couple students and a couple other people on the call. So does anyone have any questions and for any of our alum or, Professor Eggy, or even myself with our team about the pathway before we close out today?
This is not a question. I'm sorry. This is Sue Brown Clark.
Yes.
I'm the Jackson State National Alumni Assistant Secretary. And I just want to thank you all for this opportunity to even be on your call. I like to invite all those that are not active with the Detroit Alumni Chapter to please get involved with us. We are doing so many things as a chapter now and as an association, and we invite you all to be part of it. We are launching if I can announce our fundraiser for scholarships, brother Chair. Can I make this announcement? Okay, we are having our Blue Tie Gala, which is our signature event on April the 9th in Jackson, where we will be raising $1 million, and that we will be giving away $50,000 in scholarships. This is for our students. Some of the students that's coming from Washington will have an opportunity to apply for the scholarships. So we encourage those alumni who are not engaged right now to please get engaged with the Alumni Association. If you can't if you can't come to the gala, you can always give. I'm part of the honorary chairs, which I have to raise like $10,000. You can go on my website and contribute to that. But I like to invite all of you to go visit Jackson. Jackson State has the most beautiful campuses ever. And we're so proud to be alumnus of Jackson State. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. And I look forward to connecting with you and the rest of the alumni. One of the perks, one of my personal perks of working with this initiative, I get to kind of pop up at some of those events, I guess. And then, can't wait till it's safe so I can come do some of those tours, get some of that good Southern cooked soul food, down in Mississippi. And then the other, we got a partner in New Orleans, with Southern University. So, but it's been a pleasure, you all. I'm not going to hold you all any longer. If you do have any questions, just visit our website. I'll type it in the chat, find our email, fill out our interest form. If you know anyone that's interested in our pathway program, just go on the website. But reach out to us. Thank you for attending today. Thank you, Professor Eggy. Thank you, Dr. Jacobs, Dr. Mosley, Dr. Newkirk Turner, and she's from Michigan as well, too. I don't know if she mentioned that. So that's connection right there. And you all have a great rest of the day and be safe.